Hi, it's Susan Dunlop here, and welcome to episode 3 of Coffee and Contemplation with Women. Today we are going to be talking with Rae Richardson. I've known Rae for 20 years from my previous business dealings where I supplied Rae's hospital with nursing staff. Rae had just become a Don when I met her, a Director of Nursing of the now Buderim Private, and we've been friends ever since. Rae's got 4 kids, 2 in their 20s, a teen and a tween, 3 boys and a princess. Rae started nursing as the old hospital-trained nurses, and she was in the final year of hospital training before it all went to a degree level. And yet she's been recognised through the Telstra Business Women's Awards for her achievement for the change and transformation of the first fully digital hospital in Australia. I think Rae went up there as a general manager for a short time. Rae's recently resigned from Buderim Private, and we're now playing a lot more together and coming up with some pretty cool projects, whether it's mosaics or otherwise. And we're trying coffees out across the coast, pretty much is how our week rolls now. So Rae, in terms of our the decades of life, Rae is 48 young, and she is what they would call then a quadragenarian. So welcome, Rae.
Thank you, Sue.
Yeah, so we're actually meeting face to face, and where before with Lisa and I, Lisa was in Sydney, but Rae's on the coast, so today we were going to have a bit of a play date, so I thought we'd do our podcast sitting in my office, so let's see how we roll. So Rae, so when you were young, did you want to be a nurse when you were young?
No, I wanted to be a hairdresser.
Oh.
So I used to play with my Barbie dolls when I was about 7, 8, and I loved the ones. They brought the one out, the great big long hair, super long hair down to her knees, and I just thought, that was just the bee's knees until I cut all the hair off because I liked wanting to be a hairdresser. I wanted to cut and play, and I got into serious trouble with that. But then I gave her a hair transplant using my mum's wool and a big sewing needle. And she had lovely red hair after that instead of the pretty blonde hair. But it's very creative. Gave my doll a hair transplant. So,
with a big needle. So did you actually ever work as a theatre nurse or?
Only in my training. I did the usual 12-week rotation in theatre. Theatre wasn't my cup of tea. I quite liked it, but I found my love in emergency nursing. That's where I sort of spent 2 of my rotations there. So that was the nicest part, I guess, about being hospital trained. I got to try out a lot of different areas. So.
Yeah. Where did you do your hospital training?
Toowoomba Base Hospital.
Oh, okay. You're a Toowoomba girl, aren't you?
Toowoomba born and bred, yes.
Yeah. Oh, okay. When did you come to the coast?
Year 2000.
Oh, so just after us. Oh, that's interesting.
So been here, we call ourselves local now because we've been here, lived here, and but grew up on the coast. Every holidays we'd come from Toowoomba. From when I was about 3 onwards, would come and spend a month holiday somewhere on the coast. So for me, it was like coming home. It was my second home. I was familiar with it, and it was just lovely. So it's too nice to leave now. We're just so lucky. So.
Oh wow. Hey, just tell me too. Just sort of thinking about the hospital training. Like I know when I owned the nursing agency. I used to hear a lot, people would say, we need to go back to that. What's your thinking about hospital-trained nurses versus the way, obviously now it's all degree and on from there?
So when I finished my hospital training, I went and did my degree. And it was funny because some of the lecturers who had trained me at hospital were now the lecturers out at university teaching the degree. So I always thought that was quite funny, but I loved my experience as hospital training. I think we got to do a lot more and got to see a lot more and experience a lot more in healthcare. There were times when we were in lectures, and we were in lectures for 8 hours a day solid. But the hospital would ring across and say, bring the student nurses over. We've got this type of procedure. You won't ever get to see this much. So we'd get to then participate and help. So we got to see some really interesting, cool stuff. Whereas if you're in a university, it's harder for you to see some of that real life stuff happening. I think the university is a lot more structured than what we had. There's certainly a lot more hours in the theory side of it now. but there's a lot less practical hands-on side. So I still don't think that nursing as a profession has it correct, has got it correct. I think they did need to make it a university degree, but I still think that there's a little way to go to get the balance between the theory and the putting that theory into practice right. So I certainly support the university training. I just think our model of training our bringing our new nurses in, we need to be giving them a lot more experience and a lot more confidence, and making sure that they're confident as well as competent when they come into the hospital to work.
Yeah, okay. Yes, it's just interesting because it came up so much, and there was all that, the original ENs that, that they had to then become endorsed ENs. And then I know you did a lot of work with trying to introduce that type of nursing into your hospital too, didn't you?
Yeah. I was there when the transition went from when enrolled nurses could actually give out medications once they'd done their endorsement. And any sort of change, though, in a profession needs a lot of education and support. So it's not just about educating the people, like in that case it was the enrolled nurses, learning a new skill and getting the education to be able to do that. It was also educating the registered nurses to what now is the new scope of an enrolled nurse, and how could they help support them, and how could they help learn from it as well. It's not just about educating one side. You've got to educate both to actually make a smooth transition. So that was always a challenge.
Yeah, so as a manager of the people, obviously of the director of nursing of a hospital, how did you find that worked in terms of was it a battle in terms of trying to get the teams to work together when that changed?
Look, there certainly were registered nurses who didn't like the change and were vocal about that, and that's fine. They're entitled to their opinions and they're entitled to voice, and it always comes down to scopes and what they're comfortable with in delegation as a registered nurse. It took a little time, but that's okay. That's, no change is going to be, automatic overnight. With change or any sort of transformation, it is about communicating, it is about educating, it is about working with people, and sometimes taking things in smaller steps, and going gently to make sure that change sticks, rather than trying to barge it through and hope that everyone just jumps on board, and otherwise they get rolled over by the train instead of jumping on the train. So,
but I think that across that whole industry, isn't it, across aged care, community care, the disability support, the hospitals, there is a massive amount of changes happened in that 20 years that you and I have known each other. And it's just, and I don't think that has been fully respected, that there's that need for just being carefully rolling it out, how it's done, rather than it's like, this is the change, this is what you're going to do now.
And I want it done yesterday.
Yeah.
Why haven't you done it yet? Yeah. I think, look, I'm guilty of it as well. We underestimate how much time it takes to make a change, to make it really well, and we underestimate the amount of communication we need with that and the amount of education we need with that.
Yeah.
We should be, change management requires a huge investment in all of that. So,
and that was just, well, we'll stick on the work side of things first, just before we go on to some of the other questions that I thought about asking you. But the work you did in that change and transformation of the fully digital hospital, that was the hospital up at Maryborough or Harvey Bay. And you went up there, you actually got seconded from the coast as general manager to do that, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, so how did that roll out?
It was quite exciting. That was 6 months into the hospital opening and functioning, and I was asked to go up there and help them. They were struggling a little bit with in the change and transformation, because they had a huge job, and I take my hat off to the whole team that worked around that, and there were a lot of people in the company that supported them, but it was a team effort, and really what I saw when I went up there was a team that had actually achieved a lot but never stopped to actually celebrate really all the achievements that they'd made and the huge changes that they'd made. It was complete change to nursing workflow, complete change to the way in which a nurse thinks about her documentation, the way in which a nurse and doctors and allied health actually look at and find the information they need. So they really had their worlds turned upside down. Plus, on top of that, they still had to meet all the usual metrics of a private hospital from a financial side of thing as well. So, and clinical sides at their clinical standards as well. So, in recognising that they hadn't stopped to celebrate and they really needed to do that, otherwise they were going to become exhausted with all the change that was happening. They were almost at a point of being exhausted from so much change and so much happening that they didn't even recognise when they'd achieved something. They just rolled on to the next. What are we going to change now? What are we going to do now? I put in 3 goals and I called them Moe moments.
Oh,
for the heads of department. Oh, absolutely. Oh. Moe is in the champagne. And I wanted to give them a small challenge, a medium-sized challenge or goal, and then a more long-term sort of goal, because I wanted them to see that there's a goal to work towards, not just roll on to the next change. Make it a goal, make some parameters around what it looks like, feels like to achieve that, and then stop and celebrate and have that pause and reflect back on, I've done a great job, and reward yourself. And in this case, I said to the department heads, that it was going to be, I'll buy a bottle of Moe out of my own money, my shout, and we're going to stop and we're going to, one whole meeting, instead of talking about the metrics, we actually talked about and celebrated what they'd done well over a glass. Yeah. And that kind of then energised them to go to the next Moe moment or the next goal, which was the medium-term one. They kind of went, we can do this and this feels good. And, yeah, we're going to get there. And they were just about there just before I left, 9 months later.
Oh, okay.
Wow. So I think they celebrated a week or a month or two later it was. But it was so nice that they had their targets. They knew where they were heading. They had a direction. And they had a way of stopping and celebrating. And, yeah, we jokingly always talked about the Moe moments. And, yeah. Yeah,
and that's important. So knowing in coaching, as part of the, if anyone's setting a goal, you usually actually talk to them about that. Say, you know, how will you know you've achieved it? Because if you know you've achieved it, then your mind can go, I can stop. And now I can go on to the next thing. Yeah. And I think, so that's interesting.
It's almost like a mini holiday for your brain.
Yeah. Wow. Well, good on you. You can bring Moe here anytime if you want to.
Oh, we could do that.
We could do it after this call. What I was going to ask you next then is, we'll go to the side of you that we need to find out about, is what was the naughtiest thing you ever did as a child, and did your mum or dad ever find out?
The naughtiest thing I ever did was actually become a nurse. When I was in high school, Dad had a vision for me, and his vision for me was to become an accountant. And I don't know why, because I'm not really that fond of maths. I can do it, but not, my favourite thing to do. And no, I was going to become an accountant, and that was it. And so he chose all my subjects at school, and I had to do business studies, accounting, legal studies, economics, all of those. The only subject I got to choose was art. That was my one and only sort of relief from hardcore business studies. And right up until the last day we had to put our forms in for the application, it was back then it's called QTAC.
Oh, yeah.
I had to write down, and he had to sign business accounting, Bachelor of Business Accounting, and I went in and changed it with the guidance officer to nursing.
Wow.
And the only reason why I changed it to nursing was out of the blue. I visited my sister's mother-in-law in hospital. My sister and I went off to visit her mother-in-law in hospital, and I just sat and watched the nurses go about and do their duties. And I was fascinated by what they were doing. And I'd never, ever thought of becoming a nurse. Healthcare had never crossed my mind. Usually people in healthcare have their aunts or family member or mother who've been nurses or worked in healthcare, and that's what's led them into healthcare, but I didn't. And yes, I was very naughty and went in, changed my QTAC forms, and got into nursing instead.
Oh, wow. And what did your dad say?
Oh, he never let it down the whole life. Oh, he was so angry, so very angry.
Yep.
And almost disowned from the family. But the nicest part about being hospital trained back then is you got the opportunity to live in the nurses' quarters. So I left home at 17 and didn't look back, really. It gave me my independence, it gave me a sense of freedom, and I loved it. Yeah, and fell in love with nursing and fell in love with the variety of things that you can do with that skill set.
So I know what that feeling is like with the sitting there and seeing the nurses and just having that absolute, I don't know, it's like some inner feeling that it's meant to be who you're going to be. But with your dad having chosen all your subjects all that time and you being the good girl, what are you, the youngest or the?
I was the youngest in the family
at the time. So you're the youngest. You did everything that he told you what to do. Did you feel that you were doing it in a rebellious way, or you had some type of calling to do?
I just knew I couldn't do accounting. I just knew that I just couldn't go to university and do that. And it was just that sinking feeling you get. You just go, I can't face that. I did well in accounting, like actually won the subject award in high school for accounting. So it wasn't that I bombed out. I actually did very well. And I think that is what hurt Dad even more, is that I told you, this is what you could be, and yet you ignored me and you've gone and done something else. Okay. And, but I just knew that I couldn't do that. And I had no idea what called me into nursing. It was just completely out of the blue, almost an out-of-body experience to go in and be naughty and rebel and go off and do that. And like I said, it was there's some really tough things that you go through when you're a nurse. You experience a lot of things that you can't really plan for, like people dying and, you're doing procedures on people, and sometimes that's not pleasant. And there's a list as long as your arms. I mean, that people go, to be a nurse, you've got to empty bedpans and all that sort of stuff. They're not great. But there's the good things about nursing is what you fall in love with, and that's what is the nicest part about. Yeah. But there's so much you don't have to work in a hospital. There's so much opportunity in healthcare for nurses and in healthcare in general that, it teaches you skills that you can transfer into other jobs. Yeah.
But even now, I know you're in some little mixing pot of what Rae's going to actually bring into the world in healthcare as well. So, you've stepped out of one role, but it's a step up is what I sort of see you're taking. In relation to that, so we were talking also about, what's old. When people, I remember when I was like, say, 10 years old and I look forward to what 2020 was and think, how old am I going to be then? Think, oh my God, I'm going to be so old. I'm like a nana. What's your take on that? What's old to you?
All I ever wanted to be was 18. So once I got to 18, that's it. I kind of stopped. Yeah. So in my head, I'm still around about, between 18 and 21. It's funny because I don't, I've nursed people and that's it, I've nursed people and I look at them as people. I don't look at them with a label of, you're an old person or you're a young person. I look at people as that's the individual, that's the human being, that's the individual unique spirit that I'm dealing with, that personality. So I don't see, I can't describe it, but I just can't see old.
What would you say you will think is old for you in terms of, I see people who are in their 70s and they've seen their past, their parents and whatnot have died in that sort of same age bracket. So to them, they're coming up to that age bracket and going, this is it. Like, this is old. Yet, say my husband this week, Tom, he's been working with a 90-something-year-old couple out on their property. She's pushing wheelbarrows like a metre high stacked with logs. And she's 90-something and just going for it. I think so. Like, what would you see for you? Like, how are you maintaining your health, and where do you feel you will actually feel old ever?
I don't know that I ever want to feel old. I've often asked older people who are older than me about. I remember asking them when I was looking after them exactly that same, what age do you feel like when you're inside? And they invariably say that they feel younger mentally. My dad was 85. He just passed away last month. And he, in his mind, he was determined. He was a stubborn old bugger. he was determined to make it to 100. He wanted the letter from the Queen, even though I told him the Queen wouldn't be around by then. It'd be a letter from the King, but no, he wanted that letter from the Queen. And unfortunately, his mind was as sharp as a tack, and I think in his mind he was still in his 20s, but it was his body that failed him. But he didn't see himself as old at 85. He still believed he had another good 15 years in him. And when I looked at him, I never saw an old man. I just saw Dad, really. It wasn't that I saw, and it was just him.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So,
yeah, so it's actually that his body gave out on him.
His body gave out on him, yeah.
So do you think that might be the reality of it is, from your nursing experience and from life experience, is it that it's when you get to that stage that your body is going to fail? Yeah. Yeah.
And things do get slower and a bit harder to do, but, your brain, it can be still, I still feel like, 10 foot tall and bulletproof.
Yeah.
I do joke with my eldest boy that we have a family tradition of every 12 years there's a baby born. So I'm 12 years younger than my eldest sister. There's a 12-year gap between me and her daughter. There's a 12-year gap between her daughter and my eldest son. There's a 12-year gap between my son and my niece's eldest daughter.
Oh.
Now, my niece's eldest daughter is 12 going on 13, and I've just said to my eldest son, it's okay to break the family little pattern because I'm too young to be a nana.
I know.
I can't see myself as a nana at the moment. And I know there's people who are my age who are grandmothers and grandfathers, and that's fine. But for me, I'm like, I'm not ready for that yet. No, actually, no.
No, because you're 21 still.
I'm 21,
okay.
That's it.
We're good.
I'm good.
What's your earliest memory that you've had?
I have memories from when I was 3. We lived in a little white house in a little country town called Drayton, just outside of Toowoomba. And one of my memories that has always struck with me every time I see a banana is because I can't eat bananas as a result of this memory. I remember Mum gave me an unripe banana, and it was hard and it was sour, and she made me eat it. I was crying and crying, and I couldn't stomach it, and I was trying not to vomit, and she made me eat this banana, and it was just disgusting.
Was that the old you can't leave the table till
you
you're finished?
You can't leave the table till you're finished, that's it. And you will eat, because Mum and Dad had been through the Depression, so they knew how hard it was. And so they were, no, you will eat what's put in front of you, and even if it is not quite ready to eat. And I just cannot stomach bananas to this very day. I just can't do it.
Oh, no.
Flashbacks.
You were talking earlier about your dad passed away just recently last month at 85. You lost your mum quite early though, didn't you?
Yeah, Mum, I was only 35 when Mum passed away. She was 62.
Okay. Had you had any of your kids?
I'd had, Caleb and Ethan, and they were 4 and 3.
Okay.
Yeah, so they've only got very young, early memories of Mum as a grandma. So, as a nana. Yeah.
What's your happiest memory with your
mum? Probably when she came down to actually help me with my first baby, because we all struggle, and I think that was also when I finally appreciated just what she did for me, because I know prior to that I really didn't have an appreciation of my mum and what she had done for me growing up and to raise me. And when I had this screaming baby that would wake every 2 hours and want feeding and was colicky and crying, and I just wasn't getting any sleep, and she hopped on a bus, travelled 12 hours to where we lived down in New South Wales, and stayed with me for a week to try and get Caleb settled, and to give me a bit more of a rest and to get me into a routine. And that's when I realised, wow, she's actually a pretty phenomenal little powerhouse. So, yeah.
She was a country girl, wasn't she?
She was.
Yeah. Oh, what would you say to her now if you had a chance to?
Thank you.
Plain and simple.
Yeah. But no, she died of a stroke. Strong woman. She actually died. She actually almost died when she had me, on the operating table, and she was lucky to pull through.
Wow.
And when she had the stroke, all the doctors were saying she's not going to make it, she's not going to make it. She was starting to deteriorate. The swelling in her brain was causing her blood pressure to go up and her body to start to react in a way that usually is quite terminal. But she then stabilised all of a sudden and she pulled through. She was unconscious the whole time, but we were in a room and we were talking to her. And it just goes to demonstrate that even when people are unconscious, they can hear things, because her first words out of her mouth was, "Where's Abby?" which was my niece, her eldest granddaughter.
Yeah.
Abby had been visiting her 2 days beforehand and had left, and her first words were, "Where's Abby? I want Abby. Where's Abby?" And because Abby wasn't there, so we had to go and get her. So it was, yeah.
Oh, wow.
She knew that she'd been there.
And she got to go home. No, your mum got to go home.
She did.
That's amazing.
She recovered. The doctor said it was the largest stroke, in the size of the damage in her brain was the largest stroke that ever rehabilitated. She managed to make it home with a lot of support and lived for another 12 months and then passed away after another series of strokes after that, unfortunately. And, yeah. But so in the end it still was quite sudden and still unexpected, and even though, we knew it was a possibility that it could happen.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, so she got another year. Did you get much time with her that year, or were you living down the coast?
I was living on the coast by that stage, but would drive back up quite frequently.
Okay.
On my days off, I would drive up and give Dad a break to stay up there, and I'd take over because she was full care, shower, feeding, everything. So just to give him a couple of days break.
Yeah.
Take her to the hairdresser. She loved her hair being done. Little things.
Oh, okay. You were just talking earlier about doing your own daughter's hair this morning.
Oh, yes.
Obviously not with a darning needle or wool.
No.
Speaking of which, what piece of advice would you give your now 10-year-old daughter that you wish you'd been given?
Just to believe in yourself and have confidence in yourself. You are enough.
Yeah.
The skills, the tenacity, who you are as a woman is enough.
Yeah.
You can do it. I think as women we often undersell ourselves, and we're our own worst enemy. And we're the ones who don't believe in ourselves. Everyone else would believe in us that we can do it, but we're the ones who don't believe in ourselves enough to know that we can do it.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's lovely. Now, in terms of would you take her on this trip, or who else would you take? If you could travel to one place in the world and there's no limitations, where is your dream place to travel to?
I've always said I wanted to go to Paris.
Oh.
And kiss under the Eiffel Tower. I don't mind if she's there with us watching.
No, that's right. She can have an ice cream.
She can have an ice cream.
Oh, that's good. Is that on the
That's on the things to do, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I've got a picture on my wall above my desk of the Eiffel Tower, and around it are other pictures of places I've been to. I actually didn't start travelling until much later in life, so I didn't really travel that much early on. So starting to do a little bit here and there now. But the one in the centre is the Eiffel Tower, and that's the big goal.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, lovely. I think it was funny when you were telling me about your beloved, that he's got a particular theory on activities of daily living, and is kissing one of the activities of daily living?
Oh, absolutely.
I think it was
showing affection.
Oh, that's good.
All of that. And the above. It's activity of daily living. As a healthcare professional, it is. It's one of the things that we actually have to assess. And it was funny as a 18-year-old student nurse having to go and ask people about their sexual health, and asking questions. It's like, oh my God, I never thought I'd be doing this. They never told me about this would be part of the training, but yeah, it's what you've got to do. And so. how many times have your bowels opened today? That just rolls off a nurse's tongue. So no.
That was probably an easier one, is it?
Oh, just as hard, really. Just activities of daily living.
Oh, gosh. What's your favourite quote that's motivated you? Or kept you going, I suppose, through a time when you're getting clutter or other people's clatter come up to you.
Yeah, my favourite quote in that is, "Not my monkeys, not my circus." It's when I often say it to myself to remind myself that I can't solve everyone's problems. If it's really nothing that I have control over and I really can't do anything about, don't get involved, let them deal with their issues. And it's often better for people to work it out themselves without me meddling in it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, not my monkeys, not my circus.
Before we're going to wind up soon, because it's actually, goodness me, we're actually at 30 minutes. So I'm going to ask you what's your favourite song, but was there anything else that has just sprung up for you at all while we've been talking? I mean, we're going to come back another time because we've got another gamut of ideas that we thought we could actually share maybe in a few months' time. This is only the second interview, so thank you for being here for our nervous run-through.
Strong coffee after this.
I know. Yeah, well, champagne at lunchtime.
Or champagne.
So was there anything else that you wanted to cover? No? Very good.
You're amazing for doing all of this.
Oh, it's just a normal day, really, for us, but we'll see how we go. Hey, favourite song? Do you have a favourite song or a favourite artist?
Yeah, my favourite artist is Pete Murray. I don't have a favourite song. I love lots and lots of different types of music, but Pete Murray, his voice is like velvet, and I actually got to meet him once. I put him down on my goal board that I wanted to meet him, and out of the blue, that year there was a phone call. They wanted to use the hospital as a film set.
Oh, wow.
And my work colleague knew that I wanted to meet Pete Murray, and when she heard that Pete Murray was actually one of the actors, he was trying his hand at acting and he was going to be there for the scene, she said, we'll do it free of charge as long as my director of nursing gets to meet Pete Murray. And so I hung back that night and I got to meet him, and I've got a great photo of a lovely cuddle where I've got my arm around him and he's got his arm around me, and he's just so gorgeous. But his voice is like velvet. It's just beautiful. So if you want to chill and just relax, just look up Pete Murray and have a listen to some of his music. It's just remind you of the beach, remind you of just kick back and relax. And
it's nice, isn't it? It's nice to give you space or yourself space with some really nice music just to stop at the end of the day. Or Anyway, so that's us. That's us done. So that is episode 3, and my quadragenarian, Rae Richardson. Maybe actually by the time I'll speak to you before you become the next decade up, because that's a really big word, and we'll stick with quadragenarian for the time being.
Thank God I don't have false teeth and I pronounce that.
Look, it's been a pleasure, Rae. It always is anyway, but then we'll chat afterwards, and thank you for sharing your story. And I think there's quite a few people I know out there who are nurses, so it's interesting that you shared that side of life for a woman too, and your roles as, from hospital trained up to general manager to now reinventing your life on your terms. So,
Thank you.
Good on you.
Thank you.
Okay.